classic 80s metal.
Symphonic death metal opera.
But I gotta be in the mood to listen to Black Sabbath.
Many of our listeners weren't even born then.
Back for its time, it was very progressive.
I can see there are thrash elements.
You are a metal paradox.
A stunning vision of death metal.
I would listen to it over and over and over again today.
It just seems so dated.
I hear this more as operatic and goth.
Floor Jansen will surpass Halford as the iconic heavy metal singer.
You're listening to the Great Metal Debate Podcast.
Welcome, Metal Maniacs. This is the Great Metal Debate Podcast, episode 44, December 2016. I'm your host, Gomthog, here to talk metal with you listeners. If you'd like to talk back to me, please tweet at Metal Debate or send an email to thegreatmetaldebate@gmail.com. It's my favorite time of year, time for the countdown of the best metal albums of 2016. There were so many metal albums this year, so many amazing albums. We can't begin our top dozen without mentioning a few that were very deserving of recognition despite not making the top 12. These include Necronomicon, Advent of the Human God, Primal Fear's Rule Breaker, Sonata Arctica, The Ninth Hour, Striker, Stand in the Fire, Ice Thirst, Unlocked Doors, Holy Grail, Times of Pride and Peril, Starkill, Shadow Sleep, The Agonist 5, Elysion's Proponent for Sentience, Overcrown Higher, Savage Master with Whips and Chains, Endemize Anathema, Devil Drivers Trust No One, Stagecoach Inferno, A Town Called Atonement, Abath, self-titled Abath, Death Angel, The Evil Divide, Anagnorisis, Peripetia, and Cigar Tears, Northern. All truly deserve a place on this list, but these just didn't quite make the cut. So with that, here are the Great Metal Debate top dozen metal albums of 2016.
12.
I start my list with Cult of the Blackened Veil by Floridian black metal newcomers Lustravi. A delicious infernal premiere, Cult takes the listener down the long dark corridor to black metal hell. From the back-breaking riffs of Evil Incarnate, through the madness of Dona Nobis Caum, to the insipid climax of Sabrina, Cult of the Blackened Veil serves up black metal in its most engaging, raw, and haunting form. Throughout the album, Morgan Weller and company devise a consistently powerful and energetic tone, yet also provide enough dynamism and variance that it's entertaining all the way through. Do yourself a favor and add this album, Lustravi's Cult of the Blackened Veil, to your collection.
11.
The boys in Omnium Gatherum are at it again with Grey Heavens. It would be very easy for a band like OG to fall into the trap of becoming yet another noodly Teth Deck act. Fortunately, while musicianship is as strong as ever, in many ways technicality takes a back seat here to the brilliant songwriting. This album has compelling songs, well crafted with tasteful lead breaks and considered interludes. And vocalist Jukka Pellikkonen's juxtaposition of growls and clean passages work as well here as they ever have. The record never drags, and there is not a dull moment on this album. Grey Heavens finds Omnium Gatherum at their artistic peak, and this album should not be missed by any fan of classic melodic death metal.
10.
At 10 are alternative metal upstarts Catechus, with their debut album, Fallen. Hailing from New Albany, Indiana, this act features one of the best voices in the Midwest in Michaela Buska, and smart riffs from guitarist Chuck Stoss. Musically, this album gives the listener consistent melody and heaviness, backed up with a ton of technical prowess. The softer parts sometimes steal the show, however, with tracks like AM and Cried Out showcasing the band's subtly catchy side. Wisely, Catechus have mined their debut EP, String Me Up, for two of the best songs included on the album, a re-recording of the aggressive Evolve and Obey, and S&M-inspired crowd favorite Safe Word. Folks who've seen this band live can attest to the talent and energy, and not an iota of musicianship is lost in the recording. If you like your pleasure mixed with pain, check out Catechus' album, Fallen.
9.
Italian quintet Flesh God Apocalypse have always broken the boundaries of what one expects from a metal band, But with their latest record, King, the band succeeds by moving back toward their roots, having devised the most aggressive album since 2009's Oracles. In King, Flesh God stays true to the band's fusion of symphonic and technical death metal, but increases the pace with more furious drumming and placing the guitars slightly higher in the mix. That does not at all detract from their mainstay of guitars fused seamlessly with orchestral elements and choirs to create their trademark majestic cinematic atmosphere. The album is beautifully crafted, with the moods and songs placed exquisitely. King is theatrical, technical death metal at its best, and definitely one of the top metal albums of 2016.
8,
At number 8, I have Acroasis by German melodic death monsters Obscura. Obscura refused to disappoint with this, their fourth album, continuing to deliver their signature blend of dramatic melodies fused to brutal, unrelenting death metal. As with previous releases, Obscura astounds with their technical competence, dramatic flair, and innovation. The variety of sounds on this album are stunning, as Obscura are masters of incorporating opposing genres without seeming contrived. The mix of clean and harsh vocals, occasionally thrashing elements, and dissonant death metal just works here in ways other bands simply can't pull off. There is something for everyone with Acroasis, and with this release, Obscura maintains its place in the pantheon of great melodic death metal bands.
7,
Following their appropriately titled Lunar Prelude EP released this spring, symphonic rockers Delain are back with my number 7 album for 2016, Moonbathers. Counting myself as a huge fan of Delain, Moonbathers gives me much to adore. Without question, this album contains some of the best tracks Delain have ever written. Hands of Gold, Fire with Fire, Dance Macabre, and The Glory and the Scum synthesize the Delain sound perfectly, highlighting the genius embodied in the songwriting triumvirate of Wessels, Eikens, and Westerholt. There are a few misses. I'm just not a fan of the cover track, or I would have had this release even further up on my album list. But the highs are so amazing, and I definitely count this Delain album as one of my top recommendations for the year.
6,
On our podcast, we've talked a lot about how thrash may be the most overhyped genre in metal, and I stand by that statement. Despite this, I simply cannot ignore the surprise of the year, a thrash metal album worth listening to. I'm talking about Terminal Redux by Vector. Simply put, this is one great thrash album. Vector transcend the surface aesthetics of thrash, unleashing a sea of great riffs and dueling lead displays. The guitar duo of Eric Nelson and David DeSanto are exceptional in crafting interwoven harmonies characterized by speed and precision. All the songs are incredible, but the concluding track, Recharging the Void, may be the ultimate showstopper. And Vector don't rely on reworked thrash riffs, but economically incorporate progressive elements that give each song character and color. I can't recommend this album highly enough. To hell with the new Metallica. All hail Vector.
5,
Admittedly, I don't give sufficient attention to traditional death metal bands, but I cannot ignore this one, my number 5 album for 2016, Starspawn, by Colorado act Blood Incantation. This album provides all the classic death metal that fans of Morbid Angel, Autopsy, and Suffocation love, but without sounding dated or losing any rawness in the production. The opening 13-minute long salvo of Vitrification of Blood begins the butchery, and every track beyond is equally brutal. I hear so many influences coming from the deepest, darkest pits of classic death metal hell. There's really nothing musically to criticize on this album, and honestly, I would have had it even higher on my list, except that it's only 35 minutes in length, leaving me yearning for more Blood Incantation.
4,
After posting a top 10 worthy offering with 2014's The Quantum Enigma, Epica returned 2 years later to again challenge the metal imagination with the follow-up, The Holographic Principle. This album retains all the dark, aggressive, and subtle elements that have made past Epica releases great, while introducing some unexpected new twists and turns that keep the band's trademark symphonic power metal sound fresh and vital. Simone Simmons' impressive vocal performance often steals the show, alternating between soaring operatic highs and a mournful goth edge. And Cohen Jansen is amazing in his ability to make the keys do whatever they need to do to complete the song. The term fusion is often overused in music, But there's no more accurate term for how this band approaches their craft. Songs like Universal Death Squad, Once Upon a Nightmare, and The Cosmic Algorithm ensnare the listener with riotous choirs and stomping riffs, but refuse to be pigeonholed to any single genre descriptor. Not just one of the best symphonic power metal bands around, Epica are one of the best metal bands I've ever had the fortune to see live, and the holographic principle again showcases why.
3,
Insomnium have outdone themselves with Winter's Gate, my third best album of 2016. These Finnish musicians have broken the mold by creating a complete metal album captured in a single 40-minute-long track. I can't think of an album that has captured my imagination in the way this one has. Dark and somber, cold and biting, poetic in its melancholy, with the death metal coming in just the right doses. Although not entirely absent in other Insomnium albums, the folk influence is strong here, moving the listener in solitude over imaginary mountains and fjords. After listening to Winter's Gate, I feel a renewed appreciation for what can be accomplished within the metal genre, and honestly am both shocked and pleased to find the band delivering the message is Insomnium. After so many years in albums, Insomnium should rightfully be praised for taking chances here and succeeding. Melodic death metal lives, and its new home is through the Winter's Gate.
2,
At number 2, American power metal has finally arrived with the first self-titled album from California Mavericks Helion Prime. There are a cadre of impressive West Coast power metal bands like Judicator and Visigoth, but Helion Prime is the best by far, and they show it with this monster album. Featuring instrumental flash and flare bounded by effective chorus hooks, songs like The Drake Equation, Life Finds a Way, and Into the Black Hole have Helion Prime demonstrating their own charming science nerdiness without descending into camp. Singer Heather Michelle shows tremendous power while keeping a more traditional range than displayed in her other band, symphonic metal act Grave Shadow. While power metal is the medium, the astute listener will hear occasional influences from artists as far-flung as Arion and Trivium. Guitarist and songwriter Jason Ashcroft should be celebrated for the thoughtful composition and perfect execution evidenced in this initial offering. This is truly a 5-star debut.
1,
Fans of folk metal prepare to be blown away by this, easily the best album of 2016, Blood and Shadow, from cold-blooded pagan metalers Winter Hymn. Although hailing from northern Kentucky, Winter Hymn have produced in their sophomore offering music to rival European folk legends like Arcona, Fintroll, and Elvete. I don't know what book of ancient runes this band unearthed to lead them to create this stunning work, but the writing and musicianship has improved leaps and bounds from Winter Hymn's still quite competent debut album, Songs for the Slain. The tracks are composed well, flowing to create an impressive mythos forged from the band's own twisted imaginations. The violin work from Umbriel, in particular, is tasteful and appropriate, as it soars above the power metal guitars beneath it. Time prevents me from providing the track-by-track commentary this album truly deserves, but if I had to pick the highlights, I'd go with Blood of the Moon, The Summoning, and In Shadow We Ride, all of which are as good or better on the 20th listen as they are the first. Suffice to say there are no weak points here. This album shows the band carving a niche of their own and sending a message that they are here to stay. I got to see Winter Hymn play live a few weeks ago, and this isn't just studio wizardry. My neck is still sore from their performance. If you only purchase one heavy metal album this year, it must be Winter Hymn's Blood and Shadow.